Welcome back to Creekside Tales. Creekside Tales. Dog tales in a creek. Isn't that your dream? Well, I know it was mine to have a dog, live by a creek, have mountains around me, kind of live out in the middle of nowhere, and to be off grid, not be connected to the system. And I felt all the years that I say, in the system or in the matrix, however you want to put it, it you're dependent on it. And mostly we're dependent on power, mostly. Because without power, you wouldn't be watching this video right now. Without power, you wouldn't have lights at night. We're all connected to a device, to a tablet, to a cell phone. We're connected to the internet. Without power, you're disconnected. But yet, up here, there's no power where we live. We simply make our own power. Simply? Well, making your own power isn't simple. And it's funny how life works. If you can imagine these things, I don't know who you are, how old you are, and where you're living right now and what you're dealing with. But probably most of you are connected to the grid in one way or another. You're dependent on the grid. And when you get away from that, you slowly become less dependent on the system. Once you get off of it, once you start to disconnect, it's like quitting an addiction, alcoholism, anything. You slowly get off of it. A lot of times they have clinics and they give you other distractions to deal with it. Well, that's what this is like. You're getting out of the system. And for most of us, we're addicted to electricity. We're addicted to it because without electricity, you might not be able to cook your meal. I know in all the houses I lived in all the years, and I lived probably several houses. The average person moves every 5 years, and I was one of those average people. So if I figure I'm 60 years old now, I got on my own when I was 20-ish, even earlier. I was on my own actually at 18. But let's say 20, I'm 60. So that's 40 years. Every 5 years, 5 divided by 40 is 8 times. And that's about what I did. I lived in about 8 different places. It seemed like when I was young, I was moving every other year, every 6 months sometimes. I had I got into a company and they transferred me 3 times within 2 years. So, that's what they do with single guys, right? They can do that. So it's easy, cheap for them. They don't have to move a family and things like that. And they need a technician. Once you have them trained, they just move them. And now you live in another house, another city. So everywhere I lived, I was hooked up to electricity. I was hooked on it. I was an addict. I was an electricity addict. And that's how you got to look at this, because back in the days of my grandfather, they didn't have power. They had a candle, kerosene lantern. They weren't addicted to power. They didn't have it. And they weren't addicted to the heating fuels that we have today. That's the other thing that we're all addicted to, is the heating fuels. And yet we have these forests that are burning down because the deadfall is not being harvested. They come in and harvest the real live trees, but no one harvests the deadfall. Trees that are dying, ribbon them off, get them out of the forest, cut them up, use them for firewood. That's what off-gridders do. And they harvest the deadfall. They keep the forests a little bit cleaner around their area that they live, and that helps to reduce forest fires. And they use that as heating fuel all year long. So think about it. Now you're not addicted to the heating fuels to heat our homes, especially up here in Canada where it gets cold in the winter in some parts. So, electricity, heating fuels, without it, how do we live? And the most important thing that we all have to live is water. And there's various types of water. In fact, some people, they don't trust their water that comes out of their tap. They feel it's contaminated. Maybe they know where it's coming from. I know I used to live in Edmonton, and I used to go tour the water treatment plant. In fact, I was a technician servicing fire alarm systems. So I had to go into these water treatment plants and service all of the fire alarm systems. And I got to see how they treat the water. They suck it out of the river, and they go through a water treatment center and they chlorinate it. And then a little ways down the river, the sewer's piling into the river. So go figure. You know, but they were sucking the water upstream. Um, but then it makes me think, well, what about all the other cities doing the same? They're pumping their sewer in. Who's downstream from this big metropolis, Edmonton? We're pumping sewer into the river. And of course, it goes through a sewer treatment plant as well. It's supposed to be like running water when it comes out, but I wouldn't drink it. You know, so that's what we have. We have these rivers that are contaminated. And then if you get pulp mills drawing and putting stuff back into these rivers, the oil fields and so on and so forth. You know, I know the up in northern Alberta, the oil field is all based on water extraction. They have to suck water out of lakes and they make steam, and it's using steam to extract the oil out of the tar sand. So there's a lot of water being consumed. And then the residue, it's supposed to be treated and cleaned. It goes into tailing ponds, but then you see a flock of ducks that land in the tailing pond and they never ever leave. Sounds a little bit like Hotel California. But, anyways, that's what we're dealing with for water. So that's why a lot of people, they're buying bottled water, but now they're finding that there's contaminants in the bottled water, the plastic, little tiny plastic particles in from all these bottles. And all these plastic bottles are creating havoc on our landfills and on our environment. And people are unclean with this. They throw them out in the ocean, and the ocean is full of plastic bottles. And they seem to last forever. So this is the problem. Up here, we don't have a water issue. None of there's no big tank or anything. There's just up the mountain. There's a artesian spring where it shoots right out of the mountain. The water shoots right out. So they stick a hose away in there so that it doesn't freeze, or away down there. I'm not sure how they do it. And it's just simply a hose, a pipe underground, feeding all the various leased spots out here where we live. And everyone has water. There's no pressure tank, no electricity needed to get this clean water. It's filtered through all the mountain, you know, all the gravel, all the sand. It probably comes from snow on the tops of the mountains, and that's what feeds a lot of these springs. So when the valleys are flooding, even here in where we live and everywhere on earth, you get the valleys flooded. Guess what? It contaminates the water. And so we have an earth full of contaminated water, billions of people. Everyone's drinking bottled water because they think it's cleaner. They can't trust the water that comes out of the tap. A lot of chlorine in a lot of this water. We wonder, how do our bodies manage the chlorine? Why do we have so much sickness? So these are all questions that a lot of us have asked all our lives. And we've all thought about, wow, wouldn't it be nice to get into a position where you don't have to be dependent on all that stuff, and you don't have to subject yourself to all this chlorinated water. I chose the tap water over the bottled water because of the havoc that the bottled water does. But I'm guilty. I bought cases and cases of bottled water as well when I was in the system. But out here, out of the system, where a lot of people live out of the system, they might have a well. A lot of them get their water fed from a mountain. I know a mountain down the road here. We drive down a pass, and there's a spot where everyone pulls over, and there's a pipe in the mountain, and water's always flowing out. And so people come there and they fill up their water bottles year round. This happens year round in winter time as well, till it freezes up. Might freeze up for 3 weeks. But anyways, water is important. So we're all addicted to water because we need water to live. And you can't go long, you can't live long without water. I think maybe 3 days. You can live a lot longer without food, but not water. So we need water. That's part of how we function, and that's getting to be a rare thing on the planet. Now, I know when we were looking for a place to live off grid, um, all the off grid communities we lived in, people were going down and getting bottled water. There was no well. And the one off grid property did have a well, but it wasn't hooked up, nothing was done. So when we landed this spot, water right to your doorstep, no pressure system, nothing, no electricity to pump it. In fact, it pumps out so much pressure, 120 psi, we had to put a water regulator in line because we don't want to blow out our water lines in the camper, the RV that we're living in. So that's kind of where we're at. We got in here, we could afford this RV. It's an older RV. And so now it was a fixer upper a little bit. You know, like you look behind me, I got the light pulled down. It's been like that for a while. But we got new lights ordered in, but there's a ceiling going up. And this is kind of a vinyl stuff. It was like this. It was all wrinkly when we got it. So there's a new ceiling going up, and we're videotaping it all. My good wife, she's doing it. I'm a bit disabled right now. I'm limited to walking and making videos, apparently. That's what the doctor says. I was overdoing it and I had problems. So anyways, this is all good. So I'm making this video today to update the channel a little bit. Now here's a little sample of what my good wife does. See that floor? It looks like hardwood, eh? Well, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Look, I have a video coming up showing this. I videotaped it all. And it's a little dark right now. It's been raining out, so we're just here in the RV, killing some time, enjoying ourselves. And we're making power, still making power. Even with the clouds up, you can make 100 and some watts a day all the time in the daytime, in the summer, because the infrared rays do shine through the clouds. So that's on my system, that's 1/5 of the power that you'd normally get. So it's you manage it. We manage the power. So you might have to run the generator if it's raining day after day, because we only purchase so much storage. I have only so much storage batteries. You don't want to go broke with this stuff. So it's just cheaper to run the generator a bit. Everyone does. And but the trick is a big charger. So you're running your generator for less time because you're throwing 100 amps into your batteries rather than 25. So that's key. And you're the power company. You're very up here on the ridge. Very few people run their generators. Everyone has, at least over 400 watts of solar, and charges your batteries and maintains your system. It doesn't take much to do this, but yet it does. It takes a little bit of know-how and application of the know-how, trying it out. So I always recommend, and I accidentally got into this in 2016. I went and I was interested in solar, making my own power. I didn't really know why, but I did know that, if the grid goes down and I knew how to make power, that could come in handy. So sure enough, it was 2016, 10 years later, 9 years later, we're here. We're dependent on making our own power. Now, when I started in this power business, solar business, everyone thought you needed a whole lot of watts of power to live. And maybe you do, depending on what you're doing. If you have a big family and there's a lot of draw on the system, maybe you need a bigger system. But for most of us, we don't need much. We don't need much. We might run a microwave once in a while. You might run, I don't know, if you're running a blow dryer all the time, you're going to use a lot of power. So some of this stuff you have to get rid of. That you got to think differently if you want to live simple and you don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a power system. I know a guy up here, he actually left, but he had spent $25,000 on a power system, solar system, and he had to hire someone to run the generator twice a day sometimes in the winter to keep the batteries charged. So yeah, making your own power, you don't necessarily need a lot of stuff, because once you have a lot of stuff, well, guess what? A lot of that stuff uses power, and on a cloudy day in the winter when there's less sun, that all consumes power. So if you build your system simple and it's built simple enough to handle your needs, you don't need much. Out here we have 540 watts. You may have seen some of my other videos where I put it on wheels so I can move the solar panel on the wheels. And you can get equivalent of like 3 solar panels. So you take the 500 watts, times it by 3, it's equivalent to about 1,500 watts if you continually turn it. And you can look at my videos. I'm always out there turning the solar panels. In fact, I'll put some videos right online while I'm talking of me going out and turning the solar panel, so you can see what I'm talking about. So making power, which we're all addicted to, and we all decide we need it because we all want to be connected, it takes a little bit. It takes some management, just like a utility company. They hire people to manage the power, keep it going. So when you're doing it yourself and you want to do it as cheap as you can, like we're doing, one solar panel, you just move it. And it gives you something to do. You can, even if you had all these panels, they might not catch the sun perfectly, because as the sun changes in the horizon from winter to summer, throughout the solstices, it changes position as the earth turns and spins and travels. So we get to follow the sun. The best is having a movable panel, because you're going to move it all over the place to capture the sun at different times of the year. That's what I found up here. And we live in these tall trees. So you have a shading issue if you know anything about solar. Once you have a shade on it, well, the whole solar panel goes to that low voltage and you don't make much power. So you got to get it out of the shade. We found rolling it was the best, but you have to manage it. You have to be there and you have to be conscious of it. It has to be something that you want to do. And if you're addicted to it, like I am, I'm addicted to electricity just like you. You're going to learn how to make your own power, because, hey, I want to be on YouTube here talking to you and sharing some of this stuff, because I want to help you learn to get through life without power if you have to. So how do you do it? Well, the best way is to start at home. Start in your basement, start in your backyard. I know one young man, he came and bought a bunch of solar stuff, and he got started right in his backyard. He built a little shed, just a 10 by 10 shed. You don't need a permit to build them. And he built himself a little studio. And so he wanted to exercise his carpentry skills. That's another thing that's good off grid. You don't want to be hiring carpenters. You want to be able to do a lot of this stuff yourself. So he built the shed, insulated it, put windows, doors in it, put a solar system in it. And that's where he went. He would go and he would play with it. So I did that as well. I built a studio, a little bigger, out of their farm. And it was all, I could power it off solar. And I had I call it a shoreline connection. It'd be like a generator if I needed the extra power. So I built a ton of videos on that channel. It's called XJW Unplugged. And I had a big tracker, 6,000 watts, tracking the sun, everything. And the tracker eventually fails. The tilt wasn't right on the stuff. The company that sold those trackers quit selling them. So a lot of stuff, we try to automate it, but some of the best stuff you can do is roll that panel where you want. And if it's heavy enough, we've got a heavy enough, the wind doesn't catch it. And if you live in a windy area, we're in the trees. That's why we have to roll it, move it around. If you're living where you have straight sun coming in, well, you could probably go more fixed. You're going to grab enough sun, but not here in the woods. If you see our videos, there's too many trees, but you can grab enough sun at different various times of the day to really get some good charge. And here, when the sun was out and it wasn't raining, we did not have to start our generator for at least 10 days. Then it started raining. And our reserve, once you keep your system, the sun's keeping it up to par, charged every day. It doesn't take much. By noon the next day, it's already charged up, and then you're just basically satisfying your loads. So you can't even run air conditioning off the sun. I'd recommend at least 1,000 watts. So, and you can run your air conditioning. You need a little bit bigger inverter than 1,000 watts. You'd need a 2,000 watt inverter. But yes, that will be my next system. We'll be setting up in the cabin. We're going to be moving to an abandoned cabin. I did a video on it already. My good wife and I were in there cleaning up. So we're going to share that with this channel. And you should see some videos right now on the abandoned cabin. But we're going to share this as we move forward on our journey. So it's one thing and I've been watching YouTube, learning solar, learning how to live off grid for a long time, since 2016 when I started learning solar. And from what I've seen, everyone thinks you need a lot of stuff, a lot of equipment. And I don't think you do. So we started out here with the very, very minimum, in this big RV. And remember, we have a furnace, a forced air furnace that you can see it down there. It's right under the stove, forced air furnace. We have a full size 15 cubic foot fridge that runs right there, full size. It runs off of solar, mostly solar. We make our own power, right? So fridges use a lot of power, so be careful how many fridges you have. Study them. Try to get an efficient one. So we're going to be sharing stuff like that as we move forward on the channel. We're trying to build the channel, so if you haven't subscribed yet, it'd be a good time to subscribe. Then you won't miss anything. And but we're going to be sharing these videos with you guys as the audience. And some of our other videos you'll see on the channel, some will be specific to solar, some might be renovations. We're going to share some of the renovations we've done on this RV. You can do it all yourself. We're going to show you how easy it is to do a lot of this stuff yourself. Like, for instance, right up here, let me see, point in the right direction. These cabinets are coming out. That's next. And it'll all be, we're going to share these on little videos as time rolls on. So I'm almost running to an end of my video time here. I'm on a timed half hour. So we're sitting at about 23 minutes. So we're going to close this down. What do I have to say to the audience? Well, keep living your life with love. That's important. That's probably the most important thing. Because what we manifest out comes back to us. What we put out comes back to us. It's physics. What you throw up comes down. Part of physics. So what we put out comes back at us. If you put out good things, that comes back to you. Good things. So you help me. In small communities, we work with our neighbors. We help our neighbors out in so many different ways, and everyone's there for everyone. So that's also important, is working with a community that works together. And this is how we can tough out some of these tough times. So yeah, we're living in a world that's changing. It's chaotic in most of the places on Earth. So if you can make your own power, even if you're in your own apartment at home, and you go out to the deck and you just have maybe a 200-watt panel, and you have a battery, maybe you just have 100 amp, and always go LFP. Don't go lead acid, they're too heavy to carry around. But the new lithiums are, LFP they call them. It's cheaper, it's the same price, I bought lead acids for my other camper. I thought I had to have them. They're AGMs. And they cost me $1,000 by the time I did 2 6 volts together to kind of get a good system. I paid $1,000 for 400 amps. I only have 180 amps there. I have 400 amps here. I paid the same, a little over $1,000 for LFPs. So LFPs are cheaper, they work better, they charge faster. It's the way to go if you're living off grid. These LFPs even put out power to minus 20 Fahrenheit, which is 0, or minus 20 Celsius, which is 0 Fahrenheit. So to freezing, minus 20, 0 Fahrenheit. So that's Fahrenheit 32 is freezing. So it's minus 20 here, Celsius. These batteries will put out power. So if you want to go somewhere, you can shut your system down, let it freeze up, come back. I know here it doesn't get that cold where we live. It gets maybe minus 12, but they say, some of the locals say, yeah, we can get minus 20, in the winter, in the night. Then it kind of comes up. But where we used to live, minus 20 was balmy. It was warm. It was usually minus 40 in the winter in Alberta. So it depends where you live on how you use solar. Maybe if it's minus 40 and you have these batteries outside, I don't know, it's minus 40. The last guy off-gridder I helped, he had a whole big bank of lead acids outside, a whole big bank of them insulated. He spent thousands of dollars on all this stuff. And we went in and ended up putting LFPs in, lithium. And he went to a 48 volt system and put 2 of these big things together, and he was done. He was running 240 volt. He had a 240 volt air conditioning. He could run it all summer long off his solar system. So every system's different, but up here where we live, you don't need much. 500 watts. We have 3 people up here, 4 people working on less than 500 watts. And they're getting by. They use it to charge up their EcoFlows or whatever they're using to make AC power. But we're all addicted to power. And if you know how to make your own power, then that's bonus. You can do it in your living room, in your apartment, with a few components, so that if the power goes out, guess what? You can charge your cell phone. And if your cell phone is running, you can still be connected to the rest of the world. Because most of the times the cell towers, they have what they call a 48-day or a 4-day battery backup in them, I believe. And they have generators, so they're designed to kind of run all the time, a lot of these cell towers. They're emergency towers, so usually they're up and running. So the rest of the world could be out of power, but all of these infrastructure parts like cellular, it's usually backed up by power. So if you know how to make your own power, that's golden. I would start learning as soon as you can. And the more you understand it, the better off you'll be. So again, I say subscribe. We're going to be sharing everything on this channel. I shared a lot of videos so far, but the journey has just started. And we have a lot of cool things we're going to share. For instance, Snake Point, where we went for a walk out to Snake Point. I'm going to videotape that and show you what's at Snake Point. And that's going to be one of my upcoming videos. Soon as the sun's out and the snakes are all out, we're going to go and get some video. So folks, stay tuned, and we look forward to getting to know you. So please leave your comments. Comments drive the channel. Once we drive the channel, we can reach more people, help more people out. And through the comments, there's a whole forum with each video. So we invite you to do that, get involved, and start thinking about, perhaps if you're not living off grid, start thinking about it now. Start imagining it. We're going to take you through the real life journey. Not just how to do it in my basement, but I'm living off grid power. We're living this, and we're showing you how to live it cheaply.